going to do today, obviously in the meeting, big focus right now is going to be our functional movement screen. What I'd like to do right now is be able to do a sample with the Schaumburg GM and FM of how we need to be able to communicate, what sales rep needs to tell you as the fitness manager prior to, what information needs to be collected, how your actual engagement should be with the client. Dimitri's going to be the client. So big thing for me is watch body language, listen to my vernacular, watch where I align my body, watch how I am able to be professional and translate what I'm assessing, and Mike is going to be taking notes as the sales rep. The key for you guys is, as you guys watch this, I'm going to want to see how you guys are integrating this. You guys need to be training and developing your sales reps based around this process I'm about to do with you right now. Okay? All right, good. All right, so what I'm going to have you do, Michael, I'll walk up. You're going to introduce me to the sales rep, okay? The information that I'm looking to obtain, guys, is I want to know name, formal introduction. Based around formal introduction, I want you to be able to ask permission from the client to be able to release some of the information that you guys have talked about. Now, what information am I looking to find? Workout history, specific fitness goals, any injuries at that time, and what is the main reason why they want to accomplish that goal? Is it more of a vanity or is it more of a health, okay? By doing that, then I'm going to talk to the client, and now it's me presenting, and again, you'll then take notes, okay? All right, let's go ahead and role play.
All right, great. Ron, this is Dimitri.
Dimitri, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm Ron Stickney, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay.
He's my fitness manager here. He's gonna be going over what we just kind of want to talk about.
Cool.
Is it okay if we kind of release
Yeah, of course.
All right, great. All right, so Dimitri, we're trying to lose some weight right now.
Okay. Dimitri, how much weight are you looking to lose?
20-30 pounds, just to feel better,
Cool.
better.
How much are you weighing right now?
235.
Okay, so when was the last time you were sitting around that 200 mark?
Back in honestly right before COVID, so March.
Okay, cool.
March,
All right, so the COVID put the weight on.
Correct.
Like most of us,
Yeah.
right? All right, cool. So obviously coming in here looking to join the gym, biggest thing for XSport, we're very hands-on. Want to make sure that you're achieving results, want to make sure you're doing the right things on a day-to-day basis. Now, when I look at your goal, that goal to me is very secondary. The first primary goal is we've got to establish base and foundation.
For sure.
Now, when I look at base and foundation, I talked about corrective exercise. I'm really looking at a few different things. Stability, mobility, flexibility, okay? So as I do these 4 movement screens with you, I'm gonna be breaking some things down for you. I'm gonna have Michael take notes so that way when we go back and we help design a program for you, you know that you're gonna be safe and it'll get you to your results, okay?
Cool.
Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
All right, great. So what I'm gonna have you do first, Dimitri, is just go ahead and face me, okay? Michael, I'll have you take notes as what I go through. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just a natural stance, okay? Now, team, when I do natural stance, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stand in front of him, okay? Now, when we look at this, if we're looking at Dimitri, I always wanna look at hand placement, okay? When I look at his hand placement, Dimitri, go ahead and take a half step back for me. When I look at his hand placement, what I want to look at is do we have any shoulder impingement based issues? Very, very common, okay? So now what's called anatomically aligned correct would be to see the palms, okay? So go ahead and rotate your palm, there you go. But what we know is nobody walks like this. That would be obviously weird, okay? So Dimitri, obviously, if I'm jumping back into the role play, when I rotate your arms outwards, you can start to feel that there's some resistance in here, okay? Now for a male, one of the bigger things that we want to be able to see is we want to see the hands on the side. We want to be able to see thumbs, okay? So Dimitri, in this case, what I'm seeing here is that you've got some shoulder impingements, and primarily that's because the bicep, the delt, and the pec all attach in the front side of the shoulder, and you've got big pectoral muscles, and you're training that muscle group quite a bit. My concern is that as it tightens up, you've now cut down on your mobility, right? And so how do we offset that? We've got to work on some mobility and flexibility in that shoulder joint, and we've got to work on some strength in the rear delt. 2 small muscles across the top of the back called the infraspinatus and supraspinatus, okay? So for you, Dimitri, what I would really want to do, and Michael, I'm going to go ahead and have you write this down. We're very tight in the pecs, very tight through the front delt. What we need to do is work on his posterior chain, and that's going to be able to get those shoulders to sit back, okay? Make sense?
Of course.
All right, great. Now what I'm going to have you do, Dimitri, is I'm going to have you go and face this way, okay? I'm going to step to the side of you. Now what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you do 3 to 5 squats. Not too fast, not too slow. I am going to place my hand on the small of your back. I'm going to touch your knees just to professionally prepare you. You feel any pain or discomfort, please let me know right away, okay? All right, feet shoulder width apart. Hands you can place directly up above your head. What that's gonna do is open up your rib cage. Try to get those directly, there you go, perfect. And then 3 to 5 squats for me, okay? All right, and again. Cool. Now this time what I'm gonna do is I've noticed that your feet are pointing out a little bit. Let's kick our feet out just a little bit wider for me. Fantastic. Okay, now let's go ahead and try. There's a little bit better. Now one of the major things, go ahead and arms down for me. Okay, so as I stand on the side here, what I'm really looking at, Dimitri, is I'm looking at the frontal chain of your body versus the posterior chain. You, like in most cases, you're carrying more weight on the front side of your body.
Yep.
We become very quad dominant because of the weight in the midsection, develop pecs. Everything from gravity wants to pull us forward. Now, one thing being a young guy, I can tell that we don't do a lot of stretching. Is that a fair statement?
For sure.
All right, so you're looking at those hips, right? So as you're going down, feet are coming out, you sit back into that hip, but as soon as you gotta really put that pressure on that hip flexor and on your piriformis, you start to see those knees kind of move a little bit, okay, and here. Now, because of the weight in the midsection, as you get to the bottom, you're now shifting forward as well, and the weight is now put on that knee joint, okay? So just a couple of things where I really wanna work on the mobility and flexibility, Michael, inside his hips. I also want to be able to work on his posterior chain. We got to work on his hamstring development and his glute development as well. Okay?
Cool.
So what that does, team, is that takes care of 2 screens. Very easy. Now, not every time do you need to do 4 screens. It depends on the client, okay? It depends on how we're really vibing. But again, we've started with 2, very self-explanatory, very easy. Again, keys for me is again, look at my communication, my eye contact, how I'm being able to explain, and now I've brought science into the presentation. This is why it's so very vital that the FMs, you guys are constantly integrating yourself into the presentation, right? And the sales and the GMs should know that and should be supporting that, but at the end of the day, where I need this group is to understand this is a mandatory thing, you've got to get yourself involved. All right, D, let's jump back into a role play. Now what we're gonna do, Dimitri, is we're gonna do a hurdle step. What I'm looking at here is I'm looking at your transverse oblique muscles. Ideally, I don't wanna see any swaying with the body. That tells me how much balance that we have. I'm also gonna look at your ankle stability, okay? So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna pretend we have a line in front of us. Arms are gonna come up just like this. I want you to step up over top of that hurdle. So a nice movement in that hip joint. We're gonna go down and touch our heel, pick it back up, set it back next to the other foot. Okay, I'm gonna have you do 2 on one leg and then 2 on the other. Okay, go ahead. Great. So a little bit of movement in the ankle, not bad. Let's go 1 more. Good, he's very focused. I like it. Okay, now let's go ahead and switch. Let's be on that right leg. Okay, so we're a little bit different there. And 1 more. Fantastic. So not a lot of movement in here, okay? You're really, really focused, which means you're squeezing. I can see how much you're activating your core, which is good, okay? Knee was able to get up pretty high, so that tells me that there's good mobility in that hip flexor. I'm looking at that ankle stability, right? So you gotta understand the ankles are supporting the frame of the body. When you're seeing those ankles move, especially more on one side opposed to the other, what that tells me is that we've got an imbalance, okay? With having an imbalance, the biggest thing we've got to look to do is we've got to isolate that weakness and be able to go make it not a weakness anymore. So it's got to become a strength, okay? So when I start talking about program design and the number 1 way you're going to get to your results to lose that 20 or 30 pounds is strength training, my concern would be is do we do free weights, do we do machines, and we've got to make sure more than anything that we're just doing the right things to get the right result. Does that make sense?
For sure.
All right, perfect, okay? So now the last test I'm going to do is I'm going to have you face this mirror. Now I'm going to demonstrate. This is to tell me how much we've got mobility in our shoulder joints and are you left side or right side dominant. You'll keep your neck in a neutral position. Our arms will come out to the side. The goal is in one natural motion to get as high up your back as you possibly can, and I want to measure that, okay? Then we'll reset and we'll go the other direction, okay? All right, so let's take our left arm underneath. So then what we'll be doing here, team, is we'll be marking. Here's left, right arm over the top. Keep that neck up. There's right. Okay. Now in an ideal world, you're 2 fists apart. Obviously you've got a big gap there. So in both sides, he's gonna need to work on some mobility in those shoulder joints, okay? All right, so now let's go arms back out to the side. Let's bring that right arm underneath. Okay, it's a little bit lower, and the left is pretty equal. But in this case, you see, Dimitri, you're right-handed. Okay, so right was a little bit lower than the left. You can sometimes see that that's a huge noticeable difference, right? In which then the key for me in explaining that would be, if Dimitri's gonna go out and do strength and resistance training. So Dimitri, you go out, you hit the floor and you strength and resistance. Now knowing strength and resistance is gonna be the #1 way you're gonna get results, you've got a choice. It's either free weights or machines. What I would tell you is 80% of the general public chooses to go to machines. Why? Because they're easier to operate, right? Tells you the description on the piece, you go.
Correct.
The problem with that is most machines are bilateral movements where you feel that you're equal based on the fixed environment, but what you just showed yourself is you're much stronger on your right side and you're more flexible on your left. Easiest way to get a man to understand this is when you do a bench press and you got that bar in your hand, that right arm comes up and that left arm comes shaking behind. Do you ever notice that?
For sure.
Cool, that's the key for us, okay? So we want to be able to isolate, work on some mobility in the right shoulder, but also work on some of the strength in the left, okay?
Cool.
Now, key for me is assessment done, add a lot of value to the presentation with Michael to be able to go back and program design. I've also introduced myself so that way if I need to come back in and do a TO, I can absolutely do that. But here's the key, and based on the scripts that I'm gonna provide in front of you, here's where the tie-down questions are, and here's where we'll go into role playing. So Dimitri, based on what we went through here, if I was able to design a program that told you where to go, what to do, how to do it, you knew you'd get great results and you wouldn't get hurt, is that something you would follow?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. And now if I had a coach that was gonna be able to walk you through that process, because a lot of it's gonna be brand new stuff for you, okay? And I wanna make sure that you're safe and you don't get hurt. If I had a coach be able to walk you through and understanding that it's 100% comfortable for your budget, is that something you'd be open to?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to give Michael a recommendation based around what I just went through. So now Michael, based around the things that I've saw, I'm looking at a 2-phase program. Phase 1, corrective exercise to be able to fix the things that we just notated. I'd like to see that done in about 6 weeks,
Cool.
okay? What I then think is when we go to your 30 pounds, we ideally look at somewhere between a 3 to 4 month timeline, depending on how much you're regimented to your workout program and how strict you are to your nutrition, which we help you with as well. So overall, when I put this together, you're probably talking about 5 to 6 months to get you from point A to point B. Are you okay with that type of timeline?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
perfect.
Okay, great. So Michael, what I'd like to do is let's finish out the tour, and then when you get up front, let's go through membership, let's see what's comfortable for him there, and then if you need help with program design, bring me back in.
Sounds
Okay?
great.
Sound great? Dimitri, very nice meeting you.
Thank you. Nice
Okay?
meeting you, Ron.
No problem. So team, when we go through it, the key for me there, again, one of the biggest things that you're seeing is my communication, level of professionalism. As I've watched FMSs, I see people standing back, I don't see them really engaged, I don't see sales rep having something to take notes with. This is no different than what you're gonna see either on a previous slide or slide coming up. When I say the word prescription, that very much brings me to being a doctor, right? And that's the level of professionalism I'm looking for. This is why it's so very vital that my FMs and you guys out there are getting integrated into the process, and I need it done that way every time.